Hello. Hello, everyone. Parenting, parenting is hard, isn't it? It is, isn't it? But especially when you're doing the right thing, though. When you're doing the right thing, then it actually is. Welcome. I wanted to welcome you today to today's podcast. I'm Marlene Foster with Empower the Vision, and today's guest is Nneka Hall. Okay, and Nneka is a public health advocate. She specializes in pregnancy and infant loss. And I want to also tell you that she's also joining me on my book, 500 Moments of Discomfort. She's one of the writers. And in that book, she's writing about how discomfort empowered her. So I wanted to just tell you to please join us when the book is published so you can read her story. But I want to go on with Nneka actually has a degree in public health. She's pursuing a master's in mental health with specializing on grief, bereavement. She is the founder of Quilt, Quietly United. Quietly United. So if I try to do Nneka, quietly united in loss together. Quietly united in loss together is Quilt. And what she's doing is creating an awareness for conception through children of 2 years old. So I'd like to invite her to the stage right now. And Nneka, thank you for being here with me today. And if she would just give you the introduction of her background, and we'll move forward on her expertise. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Quilt was never supposed to be an organization. I actually allowed the people in the group to name the organization. That's how we came up with Quietly United and Lost Together. And what we do is we provide support to families who suffer the loss of an infant from conception through age 2. I would say that is my first organization. My second organization is Mother is Supreme Inc. And through that organization, we train people how to support people from preconception all the way up through end of life. So Quilt started and is in memory of my daughter, who was born still at 39 weeks gestational age on August 27th, 2010, which coincidentally was my 37th birthday. I cannot think of any place that I would have rather been, regardless of the outcome, than giving birth to one of my children. She was healthy and I was not. And that sort of catapulted me into the work that I do. I have had some wonderful experiences because of Anaya Marie. But she was not my firstborn. I have a son who is 24. He'll be 25 on August 9th. Now follow me, people. He is an EMT who is currently completing his certification as a paramedic. He's currently fulfilling his requirement by working in an ER. So yes, he's getting that hands-on experience. And then there's the second born, who always says she wishes at some point in her life she wished to be an only child, but she's a second born, so that's not going to happen. She is 19. She'll be 20 on August 22nd. We'll get into that in a minute, but she's my fighter, I'll say. She is my fighter. She's the child that they expected to die. When she was 2 weeks old, she had open heart surgery. And what I was told is these children die, but if they live, they have challenges. Don't expect her to go to college, don't expect her to understand the demographic between what a mom is or who you really are. And you will need to make arrangements for her care before you pass. None of that came true, thank God. I already told you about my third born, Anaya, who was born on August 27, 2010. I finally made it out of August with my rainbow baby, Bradley, who is she is pure joy. She's my inspiration. Her name is spelled Bradleigh, and she is just an amazing child. She has ADHD. She has dyslexia and dysgraphia. So when I tell you I have parented through um, several challenges, I have been pregnant in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. My son was born. When he was born with an extra finger, and I thought that that was the worst that could happen, right? And when he was almost 8, he developed kidney disease, minimal change disease. He had a cold. I thought the cold went away, but no, it was lying dormant and attacked his kidneys. He is now completely healthy. He was taken off of his all meds. He's now med free, except for vitamins, of course. And every once in a while, because of his job, he has to take some sort of pain relief. But he's been med free for about a year now. So now he's completely healthy. Simone, through her challenges, is med free. Well, is sort of med free. What I did not realize when she started college, and yes, she is in college. She's just finished up her sophomore year, and she ended up graduating high school in 2023. Now, this is a child, remember, that they told me would never leave me,
Mm-hmm.
never to expect anything of. She may need another surgery. These children die, but if these children don't die, not to expect much. They have blue spells, etc. Well, she did develop a seizure disorder when she was 16 months old. However, she has been seizure free since she was 5. She has been med free, well, sort of, and we'll get into that in a moment.
Yes.
Since she was 6. What I did not realize, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together until she developed pneumonia. When we moved her on to campus on a Thursday. By that Monday, she was sick. By that Wednesday, she was in respiratory failure. If she had not gotten to the hospital when she did, she would have been in respiratory arrest, and which would have caused cardiac arrest. Ironically, this happened 18 years to the day that she was hospitalized when she was a week old. So when I tell you I have had to fight, fight, fight for my children's medical, for their health, for their educational well being, um, I've had to fight to the point where when I had my youngest at 41, I said she would never step foot in a school, and she is homeschooled, and I'm allowing her to learn on her terms. Because
Wonderful.
at 51, I don't have it to do. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't. I don't have the fight I've already fought for 2 kids through the public school system. Tried to get her into a private school, and they wanted to hem and haw about, well, she's been homeschooled, so we want to start her over in kindergarten. And I said, no, that's not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen, you know. So I'll stop because I will have talked, and this hour will be over.
Now, look, well, I'm enjoying you, and I'm sure that that the audiences as well. They've been looking forward to actually for meeting you. And I wanted to just start by asking you though, what's a personal value that
Ooh,
drives the decisions that you make, Nneka? If you had to think of a value, what would that be?
I would have to say it comes in the form of a song. I'm not going to sing for you. I won't do that to any of you, even though
Oh, come on.
I do have a background in singing. That's a fun fact, but I will not do that to you today. Um, I have lived my life based off of a Mahalia Jackson song. If I can help somebody, then my
Yes.
living will not be in vain. And that is my walk. That is my eternal walk. I have loved that song since I was about 7 years old. My grandmother told me that I used to belt that song out, and there was something about it. And if you look at the lyrics, and I won't go through that now, but I would love for you to take a look at the lyrics to that song, because that's my walk. I believe that I come from a long line of service people. My aunt, who is upstairs right now in her 70s, um, she she was a person who did work with. She was fortunate when she was in college to march, you know, civil rights movement.
Yes.
And I grew up knowing about that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, well, if she could do that, I had to be a part of the modern day civil rights movement. So
That's,
I will do whatever I can to help someone through or to whatever their goal is at that time.
that's wonderful.
And that for me is advocacy. Advocacy work is the work that we all need. We are always advocating for ourselves and for our children if we have them, and our elders. And if you are on a certain in a certain space, once you get to that next level, you'll need to. We all want to become elders one day, correct?
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
Marlene.
yeah, and some of us
So,
are already there, Nneka.
well, I'm almost there. You ain't there yet. See, the new elder is the 70-year-old. You haven't reached that age
Oh,
yet.
okay, no, other.
So we need to learn now the
Yes,
tools so that when we get there, like my grandmother used to always tell me, you won't know till you get there. Well, once you get there, it'll be too late. So you need to learn the tools
here
that
we
you
go.
need for later now. If you are a parent of a child with any kind of neurodiversity, you need to learn how to work with them and meet them where they are while navigating whatever systems that you need to
Hmm.
that they need. I've had to go to the Massachusetts Department of Ed. I'm happy that it was then and not now, but I have had to go to them for both of my adult children so that they could get the education that they needed at the time. When my daughter was in full day kindergarten, she used to come home with seemingly a ream of paper every day of drawings that she made, but she never came home with any paperwork that was, the sheets, the little sheets, that the homework sheets or what have you, or the class sheets. I never saw papers with A's or B's. I saw
Mhm.
plenty of pictures with stars on them. And I asked her one day, after months of her bringing home these reams of paper of this, that, and the other, well, where's your schoolwork? And she said, this is my schoolwork. Well, I dug deeper because, at this point she was 5. So I had to ask her, well, where are your friends while you're drawing on this white paper? Well, they're on the rug listening to the teacher. So I dug deeper. So where are you? Well, I'm sitting at a table by the window. Why aren't you on the rug? Because the teacher tells me to sit there and hands me a piece of paper. So when I asked for a meeting with the teacher, and it's only by the grace of God my aunt was available to go with me, because at this time she was one of the assistant directors for our zone, the zone office of SPED in for the Boston Public Schools, and she went with me to this meeting with the teacher, and it's only by the grace of God she was available, because I wouldn't have had my last 2 children. I'd probably still be in prison. But this woman told me, well, your child can't learn. I said, what do you
What?
mean my child can't learn? Well, no matter how long she sits in kindergarten, she won't get it. My child had a memory disorder. The portion, since she was put on ECMO at such a young age and put in a medically induced coma
Mhm.
before she had her open heart surgery, it damaged her mind. And then she developed the seizure disorder, which only presented when she was asleep. So what ended up happening was it caused further damage. And with this further damage, it prevented her from retaining knowledge. However, my aunt, as soon as she saw me getting ready to lunge, the same freedom fighter saw me getting ready to lunge and put her arm out. You know how those of us born in the 70s and 80s, they didn't have car seats. I mean, and so
Yes.
you sat in the seat, and if somebody was about to hit, they put their arm out. Well, my auntie did that to protect the woman and to protect me. And we left that meeting and I automatically called the district's rep at the Massachusetts Department of Education, few months later, we ended up with a meeting with the rep. My aunt was there for the district. Um, and what changed my daughter's life was saying, he said, well, do you have an L4 learning disability designation for your niece in that zone? And she said, yeah, I have. And she named off the school, but I was saving that for a special case. And he said to her, what what is more special than your niece? Who is more special than your niece? And he ordered her to give my daughter that seat. When I tell you there is a difference between, um, this saved my daughter's life.
Mm.
This saved my daughter's educational life because
Wow.
they had much smaller classrooms. She had a one-to-one paraprofessional. She had speech, OT, a reading person that came to teach her reading throughout the years, one-to-one. She even had a socialization group where she was able to learn how to socialize with her peers, with people in general. When she left that school, after I was told, well, this is the year, this was the fifth grade, this is the year that children receive invitations to go to advanced work classes, and don't expect one for your daughter. Well, she got one and she went. When she received that, the principal said, well, it must have been a fluke, but since she received it, why don't you leave her, let her stay here because she's safe? And I thought about it. I had to see what my child could do. And when she went to this new school, they did not have any of the bells or the whistles that this other school that she went to. Now, she was one of 5 Black kids in the entire school, the one that she transferred to. And when I tell you that first um, that first report card, I'm standing in line ready to go in because she hadn't gotten any of her supports. And Simone went off to collect her report card and came back and said, Mom, look at it. She had all A's and B's.
Beautiful.
So I could not be angry.
Mm.
So her IEP was downsized once she reached the 7th grade. And that then at that point she tested to go into an exam school, which
Mm-hmm.
she ended up graduating from with a
Yes.
4.5 something
Yes.
GPA
Mm-hmm.
and 2 full scholarships, and was matched by December of of her senior year. We knew what school she was going to because
Yes.
she had a full ride, and she's at Boston College now,
Mm-hmm.
still getting A's and B's. This is a child that I was told would never learn anything.
Wow.
So
You know
she
what?
goes,
I wanted to
yeah,
say this to you. You sent me a poem written by
yes,
her. I mean, that
yes.
poem is beautiful. I was going to ask you if I could even attach it, but you ask her if she was she's
It's
okay with
mine.
it.
It was a Mother's Day present.
Oh,
Attach
okay.
away.
But I mean, it's beautiful. But I gotta
Yes.
ask you. I gotta ask you this question. You remember you and I spoke about this during
Hmm.
the start of the pandemic. What was happening in your expertise in your area? How did you feel about how they? Because I told you my granddaughter was born in
Mm.
2020. Tell me what you feel. Actually, what was taking place in your opinion at that particular time? What did you like? What are the pros and cons? What did you dislike? Just tell us about the pandemic.
For me, as a birth worker, I am a certified full spectrum doula, meaning I've certified in birth. I'm actually certified from fertility all the way up through end of life, but I have worked as a birth doula, a bereavement doula, and a postpartum doula for years. Um, the pandemic made me step down and step back. I decided that my last birth would be in June of 2021, um, because of the way that I saw people treated during the pandemic. As a doula, I had to work with people via Zoom. I was not allowed to physically go and work with folks in the birth setting because of the risk. Of course, my last doula baby is now 4 years old. Um, and ironically, said I was done on that Friday, and on that Sunday, one of my fertility clients sent me a positive pregnancy test, and I had to refer her out because I stood on my word. But what I saw was people were not listened to. There, there is no way you can give birth on your back. That just goes against the laws of nature. Um, the body does not transition the way that it needs to from station to station when someone is laying flat on their back, and that prolongs the situation.
Yes.
So, what I saw was people not being listened to, people of color living in fear, people not being told the truth, um, people's lives being put at risk, their babies' lives being put at risk, all because of there are certain things you cannot do via telehealth. And birth is one of those things. I supported people through losses and traumatic birth outcomes during the pandemic because they one particular instance that I'm thinking of, the young woman is only here because her uncle saw the pain that she was in. The She was very close to her due date, and she called her providers and told them that she was experiencing pain. And it just so happened that she was very ill, and that it wasn't labor pain she was feeling. It was a kind of pain. Something was happening to her body. Her placenta, her baby's placenta, was detaching from her uterine wall,
Mhm.
and they told her, well, you're close to your due date. That's you probably, your labor probably started. If her uncle had not picked her up and put her in his car, she would not be here today. Sadly, the baby did pass because when the placenta is not working, that's their lifeline. They can't breathe. That's why my daughter passed, because my placenta stopped working. I had preeclampsia that was missed, um, and that was the price that was paid. If she had not passed when she did, I probably would not be here.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's those are the things that I saw during the
Wow.
pandemic.
You know what, Nneka, I wanted to just share with you when I was there, because I rushed my daughter to the hospital.
Mm,
And when we arrived, they multiple doctors came through, and then they decided they would get me ready, right? Because I was going to be in the delivery room with her. You know what they
mm-hmm,
did? They left me waiting for 20 minutes.
mm-hmm.
20 minutes, I said, waiting, ready. And they had you wearing, I was wearing some, I don't know what that was. They had me in. It looked like I was getting ready. I was going into a room where I need to be, have some kind of immunity type of a defense on. But they had me dressed and ready. And then they came out later to say, after my granddaughter was born, that they were so sorry, but they just could not have me to come in, and they just left me there like that. Just
Yep.
yeah, and nurses were even walking past me saying, "Miss Foster, why are you still sitting here? You were supposed to be in the room with Marlena. Why are you still sitting here?" I was left out there, Nneka, and he just left me. And I mean, you're right. And there was so many things that occurred that just made no sense, that made no sense with this hospital. And this is one of the best hospitals here, but still,
Mm-hmm.
it was in 2020, girl. And I mean, it was an awful experience. And we went through several types of different experiences with the hospital. There was a lot of downsides to it. And,
Mm-hmm.
daughter was in tears, and they were talking and saying things to her that they shouldn't have said. And so one time I heard them say something. I stopped them. I said, let me say something to you. Don't ever talk to my daughter like that again, or even about my granddaughter. If it's something you need to say on a then you speak it, you say it, but don't ever. I stopped them, and they didn't ever do that again. Once I said something to her, that it was the staff and the doctors, all of them. I had to speak up for her. But 2020 was hell for us. That's why I had to ask you, what was your opinion at that particular time in your profession during that year? What
Over medicate. Yes. I mean, during the pandemic, I understand the precautions. I'll just say that much, especially with our most vulnerable people. However, a lot of fear, they put a
Yes.
lot of fear
Mm-hmm.
into our parents, our new
Mm-hmm.
parents.
Mm-hmm.
They made decisions for them instead of giving them the opportunity to make the decisions for themselves.
That's exactly what happened.
I noticed almost everybody, and even talking to other people in the field, they were overly medicating our clients during that time because they didn't want them walking around.
Mm.
It wasn't as, I mean, it was beyond walking the hallway. Yes, what was the purpose of overly medicating them? For example, I had a client who they gave medication the night before to sleep. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's not supposed to be given that medication while pregnant, while trying to deliver. And this was a live, viable birth. So I had a client, had a client during that time who months after giving birth remembered some things. She couldn't remember because they had drugged her. But one day she was napping with her infant and she remembered. And then she went back and looked in her medical records and saw that she had been given medication that she said she didn't want. And she called and she said to me, is this medication a narcotic? And I said, well, I know you've already Googled it. What did Google tell you? Yes, it's a narcotic. I said, well, then why won't you believe your eyes? She said, oh my God, they gave me a narcotic over my baby. And it was happening not just here in Massachusetts, but all over the world. It was a time, and it's still a time, where people are fear mongering our parents, because birth is something that will always happen. There are two things that will always happen. People will be born and people will die. The key is to keep people alive through that birthing process.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of the things that we see happening to our Black and brown families should
Yes.
not be happening,
Yes.
because birth is one of the most natural
Mm.
things
Mm.
that you can have. My great grandmother did it 13 times in her house.
In her house, Nneka.
They didn't have hospital births back then. They had a community midwife who was a grand midwife, who was a Black woman, who went from house to house, and people would show up, the neighbors would come out and support. The women would be inside cleaning and taking care of the woman as she labored and taking care of the other children. The older children were put outside of the house, the younger children were kept in the house. They
Wow.
cooked, they cleaned, and they stayed there until the next person in the
Midwife.
community gave birth. And everybody, including that person that they were at the house that they were leaving, went there and they made sure there was food. The men were outside killing something and cooking it over a fire.
Wow.
This is the history that I have learned through my family. So birth is something that is the way that you can do. It's like, what is that? You can have it your way. One of the fast food chains, that's one of their slogans. Well, birth is something that you can have your way. My fourth birth was something that I had my way. I had the right doctor. She listened to me. She heard me.
Mhm.
She honored me. She knew about my experience with the loss of my child, my healthy daughter. There was nothing wrong with her body when they did her autopsy. And then it took me 2 years to send out my and send having to pay to send out my medical records to someone that I could trust to review. And they went line by line and saw what it was. It wasn't that these things happen. I kept telling them, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. Oh no, it's all in your head. That's what I was told. I was told that so much during the pregnancy. And I was also in a very in the best hospital in the state. It was actually the
Mhm.
number 2 hospital in the country during that time in 2010. It was number 1 for something and number 2 for the other. So for me to lose my healthy child
Yes.
because I was sick and they missed it. They marked my urinalysis as an unclean catch from the beginning of the second trimester, where I was spilling small trace amounts of protein, to
Mm-hmm.
the day that I went in and found out that she had passed while I was waiting to be seen at 3+ amounts of protein. They marked it, even that day, they marked my urinalysis as an unclean catch. And one thing that I always will regret at that time, I was dipping my son's urine every day, his first urine of the day, for protein levels to see how his kidneys were functioning. But I did not believe that I had to
Mhm.
do my own urine because I trusted my providers. We are taught to trust our providers more so than our own intuition. We are the experts of our bodies. That's why we need to learn how to advocate for ourselves.
So that's
And if
great, and that's what you do, right? That's what you're teaching in your
yes,
courses and
I
everything.
do. I
But
teach people how to
let me ask you
advocate.
something.
Go ahead.
We're at the. I really appreciate you coming on with me today. We're actually 2 minutes over right now, but I wanted to ask you though, just at the end, what do you see forthcoming the coming year, maybe in 2026? Is there something that you've got on the agenda that you're going to be doing within your business that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I am currently writing my moments of discomfort entry, which talks about all of my personal birth experiences. I am looking forward to continuing to write my manuals. I teach 20 classes and I'm on my third manual now. So I will continue to write the manuals for each of my classes and continue to teach the courses that I teach, while I'm continuing to get my master's degree in mental health and wellness with an
Yes.
emphasis on grief and
Yes.
bereavement. I'm looking, I will know what doctoral program I'll be entering next year by the end of this year because I am looking for my
For
doctoral
doctoral.
program.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. But you know what? I would love to invite you to come. Come back and speak
definitely.
with us. And I'm gonna tell you, what the book comes out, and people will be reading your story. Nneka, and I would love for you to come back, and we could even talk about your story. Once they've
Yes,
read it and everything, I would
yes.
love it if we could do that. And I'm going to I just want to thank everybody, all the artists. Thank you for being here with us today, for coming and meeting Nneka Hall. And Nneka, is there anything short, just brief, right here at the moment, you'd like to say to our audience before we close today?
Yes, you are the experts of your body. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. Trust your gut.
Beautiful. I love that. And everybody, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you for being here with us today, because we sure do. We need to learn to trust, 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 trust. And I am more of a naturalist than anything. Instead of taking medications, guys, I'm always reaching for something natural. I use a lot of herbs. I'm a person who believes in herbs. But thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday, everybody. Come back and join me on Thursday. Thank you.